The NFL draft has come to an end, which means it's time to take a look at the biggest winners and losers from the draft. First up on my list, and by far the biggest L of this draft, has to be Mel Kiper. You have a guy here who spent the entirety of the first round, a lot of the second, and a lot of the third round, fourth round, any round you can think of. Shedeur was the main topic. He was preaching for Shedeur to get drafted. He had him as his 5th overall player, 1st overall quarterback, ahead of the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. And he continuously just stated that it was a travesty how Shedeur hadn't been drafted yet. While I do agree to some sentiment, I didn't need to hear it every 5 seconds for the entirety of the first round. There was an incident that I remember. He took the spotlight away from a lot of the players, particularly the Steelers rookie pick, 21st overall, Derek Harmon. He was reviewing tape and talking about how Derek Harmon was invasive in the backfield. They were looking for a Cameron Hayward replacement, but finished off that sentiment by talking about Shedeur Sanders, basically saying that Derek Harmon was their choice instead of a guy like Shedeur Sanders. It was an unnecessary comment. I'll leave it right here.
Talk about that. Will they weigh that position, that need, and having a guy that can be maybe the heir apparent to Cam Hayward against the quarterback Shedeur Sanders?
You would think that Shedeur Sanders was the 1st overall pick instead of Cam Ward, with the amount of talking that was being done about him. But he wasn't, and Mel Kiper just continuously kept going on that route, and his colleagues were getting very frustrated. Online perception was very poor of what Mel Kiper was doing live on air and giving so much TV time to Shedeur instead of the players that were actually being drafted up to that point. So for me, I think it's an easy choice. Mel Kiper deserves to be on this list. He was a major L. His online perception, more so now than ever, I think, is down the drain. He's already had instances like Jimmy Clausen and Mitch Trubisky in the past that keep, people kind of questioning about Mel Kiper's expertise, and this just kind of adds on to it. People are getting tired of him. He's by far the biggest L of this draft. My biggest dub from this year's draft by far has to be the Cleveland Browns. They started off with a bang at the very beginning of the draft by trading back from the 2nd overall to the 5th overall and receiving an additional 2nd round pick, trading back in the 4th, so swapping those picks and getting the later 4th round pick, and receiving an additional 1st round pick from a bottom 10 team in 2026. This was an incredible move for them. It didn't really feel like they were giving up much, and it didn't seem like they cared too much about grabbing a Travis Hunter. They made the decision that they felt was best for their franchise to kind of revitalize it, and now are heading into next year with 2 first-round picks, regardless of what happens. I think that start for Cleveland was an absolute dub. The Browns opened up their draft by sticking at pick number 5 and selecting defensive tackle from Michigan, Mason Graham, a guy that has great leverage and ability to destroy blockers and recognize plays like no other. He is disruptive in the backfield and at the quarterback in passing situations. He has so much potential to be absolutely incredible, and adding him to a defense that already features a guy like Myles Garrett is just going to make your franchise that much better on defense. Great pickup for the Browns. This was an amazing pick for them. The Browns followed it up by drafting Carson Schlesinger in the 2nd round, a very talented player from UCLA who basically is falling into the perfect position on the Cleveland defense. They are in dire need of a linebacker who is set to be a star for them, a captain on that defense, and I think Carson fits in very well. You're adding him to an already talented defensive unit in Cleveland alongside guys like Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. And of course, now Mason Graham. He also fits perfectly into a 4-3 system, which is what Cleveland plays. And he will be an all-around exciting linebacker for the future of Cleveland. You got a star. He's going to be amazing. I feel I'm looking forward to it. But following him, we have the Browns, who drafted the heir apparent of Nick Chubb, a guy who's already getting the comparisons to Nick Chubb prior to him even being in Cleveland, and that's Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, coming off of a national championship. Quinshon Judkins is a very, very talented player, kind of fits that Nick Chubb role to a T, which is why he gains so many comparisons. And it's very clear that the Browns are ready to move on from Nick Chubb, especially after his recent injury history. And they are looking to go much younger. Quinshon Judkins going to be filling in that role pretty great. I don't see him not being able to take over that role and fit in perfectly. Good pick by the Browns, who needed a running back fairly bad. They absolutely followed this by drafting Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green, a tight end who has broken many records last year, over 1,500 receiving yards, which is absolutely insane for a tight end. He made his rounds on social media as a tight end who most people said needed to be watched because they feel he is going to be that amazing of a player in the future. And I can't say that I disagree. He has all of the physical attributes to be successful. And I think that this was a great pickup for Cleveland, who may also need a replacement for David Njoku, who has his own injury history concerns. But what followed him was the biggest shock for me of the night, and that was the Browns drafting Dillon Gabriel while Shedeur Sanders was still sitting there. Gabriel, a very talented quarterback in college, doesn't turn the ball over very much. His only concern really was he's tiny. Quote unquote, he's like 5'8", so people don't really see him as being a big-time NFL quarterback. But you can trust him to run an offense. I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland throws him the reins at some point during this season. But only time will tell. We'll see what happens. Dillon Gabriel still being drafted at that point. Major shock for me. Expected Shedeur to go there or much earlier. And they followed this up by going 4th round. Dylan Sampson, a very talented college running back. He had a tremendous season last year, and I do think that the 1-2 punch of Judkins and Sampson, they will be absolutely incredible. This could be a newly revamped offense if they find a quarterback that they're comfortable with for the future. It could be a very dangerous offense. Do need some receivers. They kind of ignored that in this draft, but Dylan Sampson, they grabbed him, and I think that it was a very odd move, but I don't hate it. I do think Cleveland benefits from grabbing Dylan Sampson, creating more competition in that running back room, which was bad at moments last year. And last but not least, they followed this up by drafting none other than the steal of the draft. I don't think there's any other way to put it. Shedeur Sanders, who was once a projected top 3 overall pick, now gets drafted in the 5th round. He was originally projected to go potentially 2nd overall to the Browns, who then traded back and continued to let him pass and let him pass and let him pass, ultimately until they used their last pick in the 5th round to grab Shedeur Sanders. They get the guy who many people thought that they were going to grab anyway, and they get him for that much cheaper of a pay. I think it was like $13 million difference, something like that. So now you have a potential quarterback who some people believe is going to be an absolute stud in the NFL, and some people believe he is a bust. I'm on the latter end of that. But I can accept the value. I think Shedeur getting drafted in the 5th was amazing for the Browns. They absolutely killed it to start. And they are my biggest winners of this draft. A+ for them. I can't put it any other way. Up next, for my losers, we have the New Orleans Saints, who shocked the world by making one of the most controversial picks in the 2nd round. But we'll get into that here in a second. I did want to say that I do like their very first pick, Kelvin Banks. This is a guy that started at Texas immediately, was an absolute stud in high school. He's joining a very decent Saints offensive lineman, core, alongside their other first-round pick from last year, Fuada, I believe is his name. And it should be noted that the Saints last year, once Derek Carr went down, faced a lot of pressure on their quarterback, Spencer Rattler. 22 sacks in 6 games. He's going to step in. He's going to help some of those issues. That is not my issue with this draft whatsoever. My issue starts with their second pick, Tyler Shaw, from Louisville. He is a 26-year-old quarterback who was the craziest decision for me. I heard some reports saying that he was a pro-ready quarterback. He was going to be a very good quarterback in the NFL because he just had some things about him that a lot of scouts really liked. This is the same guy who he went to high school with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is currently up for a contract extension. He's entering his rookie season in the NFL. And we have seen some talent lately, some older talent that have been successful, like Bo Nix, who was successful last year in the NFL. I don't think that this is the similar situation. I don't think Tyler Shaw is even close to the quarterback that Bo Nix was in college. And I don't really see, the traits that transfer over to being NFL level ready. But he is thought of by the front office as that game-changing quarterback. However, he's also known for doing this at the combine. The Saints are facing a major question mark at their quarterback position. Derek Carr was announced recently with a major injury, could be facing severe time missing probably the entire NFL season this upcoming year. And truthfully, I don't think that the Saints are going to be good without Derek Carr. I think they'll be mediocre with Derek Carr. But they're definitely not going to be good without him. They're going to be heading into the season with Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, and then now Tyler Shaw. It doesn't make for a very good quarterback room. It doesn't make for a very successful quarterback room. And I do think that next year they will be a bottom 5 team in the league, and they're just going to be right back in the same situation where they're going to need a quarterback, and they're going to be in a much better position in a much better quarterback draft class in 2026. And then they're going to look very foolish because they committed their 2nd round pick thinking that this was their guy, and now you're going into a better quarterback class, and you might have to consider using your first. So that being said, the Saints also didn't address any of their major needs like edge rusher, wide receiver, or corner until the 4th round. 4th round went out and drafted a corner who's not too... He doesn't stand out too much. I don't think he's going to be a starter immediately. It's one of those things where you wanted them to focus on their biggest needs, and they just didn't. It didn't seem like they addressed anything that they really should have. They got their first edge rusher in like the 7th round, and all of their receivers that they picked up were undrafted free agents that probably won't make the team. So it seems pretty lazy on the part of the higher ups in the Saints organization. I think that they had probably, in my mind, the worst draft of anybody. I can't really name anybody after Kelvin Banks Jr. that I particularly liked that they drafted. I do think that they have a couple of potential guys, the linebacker that they drafted in particular, because I know Demario Davis is getting a lot older. But other than that, it really wasn't anything to write home about. This team is in shambles, and they just had bad picks. So, real big losers of this draft. Come on, New Orleans, get it together. My last winner from this year's draft has to be the New England Patriots. The Patriots have a very simple game plan going into the draft this year with new head coach Mike Vrabel, and that was help Drake May as much as you can, get as many picks that will help your offense succeed and make Drake May feel more comfortable. And they did just that with the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft. The Patriots selected Will Campbell, left tackle from LSU, who many believe to be the best offensive tackle in this year's draft by far. And the Patriots' biggest void by far on their entire roster was at left tackle, so this seemed like a pretty easy decision for them. Campbell, while lacking in arm length, which was a major concern heading into the draft, he makes up for it in play recognition, high football IQ, and his athleticism, which should allow him to be an amazing starter for years to come for the Patriots and a future Pro Bowler, I imagine, for this team. The Patriots then followed up that selection by grabbing TreVeyon Henderson from Ohio State in the 2nd round to add competition to their running back room, which features Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson, which was pretty poor last year. I think it was a very disappointing season for the running back room all around. I don't think they've been happy with Ramondre for a while, and this looks like a change of pace. Adding, a more dynamic player in TreVeyon Henderson. This is a back that can do it all. He is a guy that can take it to the house 80 yards deep, or, he can sit behind and help protect his quarterback. He's an elite pass protector, and he's going to add another dynamic to this offense that I think that it was severely lacking, and I think he and Drake May will work very well together. The Patriots then selected Kyle Williams from Washington State, a much-needed receiver, thus adding more offensive talent to Drake May's arsenal. Williams was very dynamic at Washington State. He should give the Patriots the ability to stretch the field vertically and has an uncanny ability to create separation on his defenders. He should be a favorite for Drake May this year. I don't see the Patriots having any real wide receiver competition for him. What's up, guys? While editing the video, I noticed that I did not talk about the fact that the Patriots did sign Stephon Diggs, so it's not just Kyle Williams back there. Stephon Diggs adds another dynamic, which opens opportunities for other wide receivers. I just wanted to make sure that I pointed that out because the Patriots did add Kyle Williams, but they also have Diggs back there to help out in that receiver room. Although you really never know with this team, especially with Vrabel taking over, but I do think that he will be a favorite. And then lastly, on the offensive side of the ball in the 3rd round as well, the Patriots drafted offensive lineman or center Jared Wilson. He was the top-rated center, and he fell down 20 picks past what a lot of people had him ranked, which was a big steal for the Patriots. He's going to take a season, learn behind Garrett Bradbury, and the Patriots reinforced their offensive line to protect Drake May even further. Their 2nd offensive lineman in the first 4 rounds, first 4 picks. This was amazing for them. He's an excellent run blocker that's working on his pass protecting abilities, but he will be a starter in this league at some point. And the Patriots to grab 4 guys who could start for them immediately in those first 4 picks is absolutely incredible. Along with that, you look at their picks after that, the Patriots continued to add value, grabbing Brady Swinson and Craig Woodson on the defensive side of the ball, along with fixing a lot of their major holes on their special teams, drafting a kicker and a long snapper. I think the Patriots altogether, just what they did, the culture that Mike Vrabel is deciding to do, kind of going a little bit off of the Bill Belichick model that we've seen in recent history and we've seen be successful. I think this was amazing for the Patriots. It's hard to argue that they are not one of the biggest winners, if not the biggest winner of this year's draft. I don't hate or feel like they reached on any of these picks. And I do think that a lot of these picks will help them be more successful and will be starters long term for them. And that is a rare find in a lot of the drafts nowadays. Patriots, big dub for you. And last but certainly not least, my biggest losers of the NFL draft are the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals came into the draft with a lot of question marks, primarily around their defense. This is a defense that performed very poorly, no matter how many points Joe Burrow and company scored. The Bengals were just not able to pull through on the defensive side of the ball, and especially now with Sam Hubbard announcing his retirement and Trey Hendrickson seeking a new deal, but nothing has been given to him quite yet. This team is in shambles. They're not even close to giving Hendrickson that new contract, which leaves a big opening at the edge position. And you have their vice president, or executive vice president, who stated that Hendrickson should be happy with what he currently has instead of seeking a rate that they don't feel like he needs to have, essentially. And for a superstar like Hendrickson, who literally just led the NFL in sacks with 17 and a half, he was one of the few bright spots on this defense, and you're going into now May questioning whether or not Hendrickson will still be with the team, if he's going to get a new deal, what's going to happen. So the Bengals, with their first pick, decided to help out on their defensive line now that Sam Hubbard is retired, and they went with a very physically gifted but raw talent in Shamar Stewart. Tremendous athlete, physical beast, but this is a guy who only had 4.5 sacks over a 3-year period at Texas A&M. He is a project. He has a very poor use of hands as an edge rusher. He's often inaccurate with his hand placement, which gives offensive linemen the edge over him and allowed them to make contact with him first. He has been caught quite a number of times, leaving his running gap, and Texas A&M has suffered because of that. So there are a lot of issues that I have with this pick. Primarily that you could have gone with a more sure thing. I feel like Derek Harmon would have improved that defensive line and made much more of an impact at his position than Shamar Stewart would. But that's just me personally. I don't believe in the whole raw talent thing. It doesn't always equate to NFL success. And I just don't think that the Bengals made the right decision with the 17th overall pick. If they were going to grab Stewart, they probably could have traded back a little bit. I don't think teams were really looking at him that seriously because of how much of a raw talent and project that he seems to be. You can see here on these clips, Shamar Stewart doesn't win off of the edge and is completely taken out of the equation. The lineman does a great job of staying ahead of him, and Shamar Stewart does not do a very good job whatsoever. Once he is beaten on the offensive line of making an impact and pushing back, it's kind of something that he really struggles with. and it was very apparent in those two instances. So pretty raw talent. The Bengals then selected Demetrius Knight, a very talented player, for their linebacking room, along with a fellow linebacker in the fourth round. I didn't quite understand that. It doesn't seem like these two guys, both Barrett Carter and, of course, Demetrius Knight, are going to be starters heading into the season and make that much of an impact. So I didn't really understand the move here, albeit very talented linebackers, but it just didn't make any sense to me. It didn't seem like they were addressing needs that they should have been focusing on. The Bengals didn't select a single corner throughout the draft, leaving their secondary pretty wide open, and in those instances where they do need a corner pretty bad. It's been apparent for the last couple of years that the Bengals need a corner, and to not address that and assume that you're just going to get somebody for free agency or you're going to be okay with what you have doesn't make for a good recipe. Not only that, Dylan Fairchild, their offensive lineman that they took in the third round, probably won't be an instant impact maker on the offensive line, and nobody else that they drafted throughout the rest of the draft probably will be either. Taj Brooks, love the pick, but is going to sit behind Chase Brown. You never know what's going to happen there. Overall, I don't think that the Bengals addressed anything that they really needed. Any major needs that they had, like corner. They did address the edge, but again, raw talent project. It's not an instant impact that I was expecting to see Cincinnati do. The Bengals fans, I don't think, should be happy with this draft. I think there are a lot of holes that are left wide open, holes that were open at the end of last season, and now you have those same holes within almost an entire offseason to try and fill, and you're halfway through that, and you've done nothing. So, the Bengals made some really tough decisions in my mind for the draft, and they don't come out of the draft looking better. In fact, I think that they're one of those few teams that came out of the draft with absolutely no benefit for them afterward, and it's really tough to see. I feel bad for Cincinnati fans and Joe Burrow specifically. And that's going to do it for me, guys. If you guys like this video and you guys want to see more videos like it, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe, comment if you're new here. Let me know what you thought about my winners and losers. Tell me what you agreed with. Tell me what you didn't agree with. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.